My brother always said we'd go down together. Turns out, only one of us did. I guess I should start by saying I never thought I'd be writing something like this. Not because I think I'm better than the people who do. I'm definitely not, but because I always saw myself as the guy who stayed loyal, no matter what. I grew up thinking that if someone had your back, you had theirs. No questions asked, especially if that someone was your big brother. Nick is 2 years older than me. Our mom had us young, and our dad was never really around. He was in and out of jail by the time I could walk. When he was around, it was chaos. Screaming, broken furniture, the smell of beer on his breath even in the morning. So when I say Nick raised me, I mean it literally. He packed my lunches, signed my permission slips, beat the crap out of a kid twice his size when he shoved me into a locker in 5th grade. He was my entire sense of safety in a world that never offered us any. We made it through school barely hanging on. Nick dropped out first. I almost did too, but he made me finish. Said one of us had to. He was always like that, took the hit so I wouldn't have to. I think that's what's messing me up the most now. So here's where it all went to hell. We were both working dead-end jobs, me doing part-time HVAC installs while trying to get certified, him moving freight in some sketchy warehouse for minimum wage and a boss who didn't even pretend to care. Rent was always late. My car was 2 payments from repossession. Nick's credit was shot to hell, so he didn't even try to have a credit card. We were stuck, stagnant. One night after work, he says he's got an opportunity. Quick job, he tells me. Good money, easy, in and out. Now, before you say anything, yeah, I know how that sounds. I wasn't naive. I asked questions. He dodged most of them. Said it was just moving some electronics. That's it. No weapons, no drugs, no violence. Just drive a rented van from one loading dock to another. I still hesitated. He pushed harder. Said I owed him for everything he'd done for me. Said we deserved a break. Said it was time to stop surviving and start living. So I said yes. We picked up the van at a strip mall just past midnight. Drove 20 minutes to a warehouse in the industrial part of town. There were already guys there waiting. Guys I didn't know, but Nick seemed to. They loaded the boxes fast. Laptops, phones, other high-end tech, all still in shrink wrap. Something in my gut twisted, but I pushed it down. Thought maybe it had fallen off a truck. Maybe the insurance would cover it. I told myself a lot of lies in those few minutes. We barely made it 4 blocks before the flashing lights came on. Unmarked car behind us, then another cutting us off from the front. They moved fast, guns out, screaming. It was like something out of a movie. They dragged us out, cuffed us on the pavement. I could feel gravel biting into my cheek. Nick kept shouting that I had nothing to do with it. Over and over. Leave my brother out of this. He didn't know shit. Didn't matter. They booked us both. The first 48 hours in holding felt like a month. We were in separate cells. No contact. Just the stink of sweat and piss and the constant buzzing of fluorescent lights. My public defender looked like she hadn't slept in a decade. She handed me a thick stack of papers and said, "They've got you both cold. Surveillance. Text records." One of the guys flipped already. That was the first time I heard the word, deal. "They know Nick was the point of contact," she said. "They know you were brought in late. If you cooperate, testify, give a statement, whatever they want, you'll likely get probation. Maybe even a clean record after some classes." My brain froze. I thought about our mom, who still worked the diner and had no idea her sons were in jail. I thought about my girlfriend, who had just moved in. I thought about the exam I was supposed to take next week for my HVAC certification. I thought about 5 years. 10. And I thought about Nick. That night in the cell, I didn't sleep. I watched the flicker of the hallway light through the tiny window in the door. I remembered how Nick used to climb into bed with me when the power was out and the wind screamed through the broken windows of our old apartment. How he held my hand so I wouldn't cry. How he always said, "If we go down together." I wanted to believe I was still that kid. That I'd take the hit for him, like he had for me. But I wasn't that kid. I was scared, selfish, tired, and when morning came, I signed the papers. The release was quiet, no fanfare. Just a plastic bag with my wallet and phone and a half-hearted, "You're free to go," from a deputy who didn't even look me in the eye. I stood outside the county jail in the same clothes I was arrested in. Cold, alone. I told everyone some version of the truth that sounded just enough like a lie to protect me. It was a misunderstanding, I said. They dropped the charges. No one questioned it too hard. Most people were just relieved. My girlfriend cried. My mom hugged me like I'd come back from war. Nick wrote me a letter the next week. It came with shaky handwriting and a return address that made my stomach turn. Jay, I'm glad you're out. That's all I care about. We'll figure it out when I get out too. Stay safe. I didn't write back. I didn't visit. I told myself it was cleaner this way. But I still have the letter. Folded and refolded so many times the paper's almost soft. I thought the hard part was over once they let me out. I thought signing the deal, betraying Nick in writing, was the low point. Like that one moment defined the worst of it, and everything after would just be fallout, hard, sure, but manageable. I'd go home, keep my head down, move on. He'd do a bit of time, probably get out early for good behavior, and one day we'd just not talk about it. Maybe laugh it off as a stupid mistake we both survived. But that's not what happened. The first few days back on the outside were weirdly normal. My girlfriend, Allie, met me outside the courthouse when they let me go. She cried so hard her whole face turned red. She kept saying, I was so scared, over and over like a loop she couldn't break. I hugged her, smiled, lied. It was nothing, a misunderstanding. They figured it out. She believed me. At least, she didn't press. When we got home, the apartment smelled like her vanilla candles and Febreze. She'd cleaned everything top to bottom. The fridge was full. There were clean sheets on the bed. She even bought the fancy kind of orange juice I like, the one with pulp and calcium. And I felt nothing. No relief, no joy, just a heavy, crawling nausea that didn't go away no matter how many showers I took. I must have stood under the hot water for an hour that night, just staring at the tile, until my skin went red. I couldn't stop thinking about the moment Nick got cuffed, how he looked at me like he was already forgiving me for something I hadn't even done yet. A couple days later, I got a call from our mom. She didn't know about any of it. Not until Nick got denied bail and the court contacted her as his emergency contact. She didn't cry, just got real quiet, like her voice dropped into some lower register I didn't know she had. What the hell happened, Jason? I lied again, said Nick was the one doing the job. Said I didn't know what was going on. Said I was just the driver, and the DA realized it and dropped the charges. She sighed, then said the thing that hit me harder than anything else. I'm glad you're safe. Safe. I'd never felt less safe in my entire life. After that, I went back to trying to live normally. Went to my HVAC classes, tried to focus. Got my certification 2 weeks later. I even found a job through a guy the first met in class. Clean work, decent pay, nothing shady. On paper, things were improving. But nothing felt right. Everything was off. Allie started noticing first. I'd space out at dinner. Wake up in cold sweats. Flinch when someone said Nick's name. She thought I had PTSD from the arrest. I didn't correct her. It was easier than explaining the truth. Then the letters started coming more often. Nick wrote once a week, like clockwork. Never angry, never accusatory, just Nick, telling me how things were going inside. How he was working in the kitchen. Reading more, staying out of fights. He always ended with some variation of, hope you're doing good out there. I'm proud of you. I read every single one. I never wrote back. I told myself it was because I didn't know what to say. But really, I was just a coward. Every envelope that came was like a hammer to the chest. I kept them all in a shoebox in the back of my closet. Allie found it once and asked if I wanted to send anything back. I told her I was still processing everything. Still processing. That was my go-to phrase. For Allie, for Mom, for myself. Meanwhile, the shoebox got fuller, and the guilt got louder. And then came the hearing. I wasn't required to be there. The deal was done. I'd given my statement. No trial necessary. But they invited me anyway. Said it was procedural. Just a formality. I don't know why I went. Maybe I thought I owed it to him. Maybe I wanted to be punished. I sat in the very back row of the courtroom. Nick walked in wearing that orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front, looking like he hadn't slept in a year. But he still looked like Nick. Like my brother. He scanned the room, and for a second, our eyes met. He smiled. God help me, he fucking smiled. That was when I almost lost it. I had to bite the inside of my cheek just to stay in my seat. The taste of blood kept me grounded. I watched as the judge read off the plea deal, 4 years, with possibility of parole after 2. Nick nodded, didn't flinch, just said, "Yes, Your Honor," like he was ordering coffee. Then he turned around, looked straight at me, and nodded once. Like it was okay, like he forgave me for something he still didn't know I'd done. That night I got blackout drunk. First time in years. I woke up on the kitchen floor, puke on my shirt, shoebox spilled open across the linoleum. Letters everywhere. Allie found me there. She cleaned me up, didn't say a word. Just looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time, and wasn't sure she liked what she saw. She started sleeping on the couch after that. Mom called me more often, mostly asking how I was holding up. She visited Nick once a month and always told me he asked about me. He says you must be working hard, you're always busy. I'd laugh weakly, say something vague. The lie was too deep now. I couldn't climb out. The worst part was, no one blamed me. No one asked why I got out and Nick didn't. No one questioned the story. I was the good kid who got caught in something ugly and survived. That's how they all saw it. Allie, Mom, even Nick, and I let them believe it. But the truth didn't care. It sat inside me like a ticking bomb, waiting for a crack. And it was only a matter of time before something gave. I didn't notice the first crack until it was already a fault line. It started with silence, the kind that isn't just quiet but heavy. The way the apartment felt after Allie stopped trying to talk to me. No more small talk while we cooked. No more casual, love you-s before bed. Just two people moving around each other like ghosts, pretending not to notice how cold everything had gotten. I'd come home from work, and she'd be curled up on the couch, laptop open, headphones in. Sometimes she'd pretend to be asleep. Sometimes I'd pretend I didn't care. We still slept in the same apartment, but I couldn't remember the last time we touched. Even the air between us felt like it had rules. One night, I found her on the balcony, smoking. She doesn't smoke, or didn't. I leaned against the doorframe and asked, "Since when?" She shrugged. "Since I realized I don't know who the hell I live with." I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? I'm the guy who sold out his brother to save himself, and now I rot from the inside out. That doesn't land so well in casual conversation. She flicked the cigarette over the railing and went inside without another word. After that, she started going out more. Just meeting friends, she'd say. Won't be late. I didn't ask who, didn't ask where, didn't have the energy to be jealous. By the end of the month, she was gone. Took half the furniture and all the good silverware. Left a note on the fridge. No big final argument, no slammed doors. Just one last silence. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because we were perfect, we weren't. But because she was the last person who made me feel like I could still pass as normal. With her gone, I stopped pretending. I quit my job a week later. Told my boss I had family stuff. He nodded like he understood, but I could tell he didn't care. I walked out with my last paycheck in hand and no idea what the hell I was going to do next. My days got slower after that. I'd sleep until noon, wake up drenched in sweat from dreams I couldn't remember. Sit at the kitchen table for hours, just staring at the wall. Sometimes I'd read Nick's letters again. One by one, out loud, like maybe if I said his words enough times, they'd erase mine. One of them stood out. You always had the guts I didn't, Jay. Even when we were kids. You were the one who told Mom you broke the window, even though it was me. You were always stronger than me. I laughed when I read that. Laughed so hard I started crying. I wasn't stronger, I was just better at lying. Eventually, I stopped checking the mail. The shoebox overflowed. Some letters stayed sealed. I told myself I'd get to them eventually. But even the act of holding one made my hands shake. I stopped answering Mom's calls too. She left voicemails, soft, worried ones. Asking how I was, if I needed anything. Telling me Nick was doing well. That he got moved to a lower security block. That he made a friend who taught him how to play chess. That he asked about me. Every time, I deleted the messages. Not because I didn't care. Because I couldn't handle caring. And then, one day, the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't ordered food. Didn't have friends left who would visit unannounced. I looked through the peephole and saw her. Mom. I hadn't seen her in person since before the arrest. Maybe longer. She looked older, smaller, like grief had been chipping away at her bone by bone. I didn't open the door right away. She waited. Eventually, I let her in. She walked past me like she lived there. Sat down at the table like it hadn't been covered in unopened mail and takeout boxes. I went to see Nick, she said, without preamble. I nodded. He told me something weird, she went on. Said you stopped writing. Said you haven't come to see him. Said he's worried about you. I didn't say anything. She stared at me for a long time. Then, gently, Jason, what happened in that courtroom? The words rose in my throat like bile. I wanted to tell her. God, I did. I wanted to drop to my knees and sob into her lap like I was 6 again. Tell her I was sorry. That I didn't know what I was doing. That I was scared. That I'm still scared. That every day I wake up feeling like I'm drowning in cement. Instead, I said, I couldn't handle it. I had to protect myself. Her face didn't change. Not a twitch. Just that same calm, quiet look she used to give Dad when he got mean. That mask of survival. Did you talk to the cops, Jason? I flinched. She nodded, like she already knew. You were always his shadow, she said. Followed him everywhere, looked up to him like he was the sun. But when it came down to it, you left him in the dark. I didn't argue. She stood up, walked to the door, then turned back once more. You know he still defends you, right? Says you didn't deserve any of this. That you were just in the wrong place. That it's his fault. I closed my eyes. She left. The door shut like a judge's gavel. I don't remember how long I stood there. Could have been minutes. Could have been an hour. I finally sat down and opened one of the letters I hadn't touched. The last one. Inside, in his scrawly handwriting, it said, I had a dream about us as kids. Riding bikes to the gas station for Slurpees. You still hated grape. I still loved cherry. It felt so real. I woke up smiling. I know it wasn't your fault, Jay. I know you wouldn't have let this happen if you could stop it. I'm okay. Just miss you. That was the night I started drinking again. Not just a beer here and there. I mean really drinking. The thing they don't tell you about guilt is that it doesn't stay still. It moves. It grows. It mutates. Some days, it just hums in the background like an old refrigerator, low, constant, ignorable if you try hard enough. Other days, it wraps around your throat like a seatbelt in a car crash. You're not dying, not technically, but you can't breathe right. By the time winter hit, I wasn't sleeping more than a couple hours a night. I'd wake up around 3 a.m. like clockwork, soaked in sweat, heart pounding, no dream to blame it on, just pure static. I stopped opening the blinds. Stopped answering the phone. Stopped pretending I was gonna get it together next week. My landlord left 2 notices on the door before I even acknowledged them. I was 3 months behind on rent. Most of my stuff was already sold for cash. TV, laptop, tools. My toolbox, the one I needed for HVAC work, went last. Pawned it for enough to buy 3 bottles and a pack of smokes. I drank like it was a job. Not the fun, party kind of drunk. The kind where your hands shake until you get it in you. Where you forget whole days. Where you wake up on the bathroom floor with your cheek stuck to tile and no idea if you pissed yourself. One morning, I think it was morning, there was a knock on the door again. I didn't answer. I was sitting on the floor of the kitchen, drinking warm whiskey out of a coffee mug. Let them knock, let them kick it in. Who cared? But the knocking didn't stop. It wasn't frantic, just steady. Relentless. Eventually I stumbled over and cracked the door. It wasn't Mom this time. It was a guy in a tan jacket and a beard that made him look older than he probably was. Jason Fields? He asked. Who's asking? He held out a badge. Parole officer. Not mine. Nick's. I sobered up just long enough to let the panic sink in. He listed you as a contact, the guy said. You were the only one local. Just wanted to let you know he's up for early release. Transfer hearings next week. I stood there, nodding like I understood English. He handed me a paper. Said I didn't have to come, but Nick had mentioned me. That he'd want me there. He says your family. Says you were close. I didn't say anything. The guy left. I shut the door and slid down it, the paper still in my hand. It was just a standard notice, some legal jargon, a date, a courtroom number. But to me, it was a ticking bomb. Nick was getting out, early. He'd be free in less than a month. And I had no idea if he knew. That night I didn't drink. First time in weeks. I just sat at the table with the notice in front of me, rereading every line. Imagining what he'd say, what I'd say, what I wouldn't be able to say. What if he did know? What if he'd known this whole time? The idea didn't feel ridiculous anymore. Not after Mom's visit. Not after the last few letters. The way he kept defending me. The way he never asked for anything. That dream he described, as his kids, riding bikes, it felt more like a goodbye than a memory. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Next day, I forced myself to shower. Shaved. Put on clothes that didn't smell. Looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Gaunt face. Bloodshot eyes. Like I'd crawled out of someone else's skin. Then I went to the hearing. It was in the same courthouse as before, but a different courtroom. Smaller. No jury box. Just a table, a judge, a parole board, and Nick. He looked good. Better than I expected. He'd gained a little weight. Hair cut short, new glasses. He didn't see me come in. I sat in the back, heart in my throat. The hearing was quick. Standard stuff. Behavior reports. No infractions. Job lined up at a mechanic's shop. A room at a halfway house. One of the board members asked about support systems on the outside. Nick didn't even pause. I've got my mom, and my brother. He'll be there. It felt like he looked right at me when he said it. But he didn't. They granted the transfer. He'd be out in 2 weeks. I left before he saw me. Back home, I didn't drink. I just sat. Then I did something I hadn't done in a year. I wrote him back. Just a short letter. Nothing fancy. Didn't talk about what happened. Just said I hoped he was okay. That I was sorry for being quiet. That I missed him. I mailed it the next morning. Didn't expect a reply. Didn't deserve one. But it came. A week later. Simple envelope. No return address, just the prisons. Inside was one line. See you soon, Jay. Let's talk then. No anger. No accusation. Just that. And that scared me more than anything else. Nick got out on a Wednesday. I knew that because I marked it on my calendar and stared at it for hours the night before. Not because I was excited. Not because I was dreading it, exactly. But because it felt like I was standing on the edge of something, and I didn't know if I was about to fall or jump. The halfway house was on the other side of town, some nonprofit-run place with creaky floors and rules about curfews. I didn't go pick him up. I thought about it, sat in my car for an hour debating it. But in the end, I didn't know what I'd say. Instead, I just drove by. I saw him from the corner. Standing on the steps with a paper bag in one hand and his other hand shading his eyes from the sun. He looked normal, more normal than I felt in a year. Which was maybe the worst part. I kept driving. Later that night, Mom called. I didn't answer. She left a message saying Nick was back, that they were having dinner Friday, and she hoped I'd come. I didn't respond. Friday came anyway. I got there early. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to walk in late and have all eyes on me. Or maybe I just needed a few minutes to sit in the driveway and breathe. Mom's house hadn't changed much. Same wind chimes by the porch, same dying azaleas she swore would bloom next year. The kitchen window was lit up. I could see her inside, stirring something on the stove. I got out of the car. Inside, everything smelled like garlic bread and anxiety. She hugged me like nothing had happened. Said I looked thin, told me to sit, poured sweet tea into a glass without asking. Then he walked in. Nick. He looked the same. Different, but same. Prison didn't leave a mark on him the way I expected. Or maybe it did, but in ways I couldn't see. He smiled when he saw me. Not big, not forced, just a smile. Hey, he said, hey. That was it. Dinner was awkward in the way only family dinners can be. Mom kept trying to fill the silence. How's work, Jay? You still like those hot sauces, Nick? Remember when you two stole the neighbor's sprinkler and blamed it on raccoons? We nodded, smiled, ate. Then Mom said she had to take a call, and disappeared upstairs, which was the most obvious excuse in the history of excuses. We were alone. Nick wiped his hands on a napkin. Looked at me across the table. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't sad. Just clear. You wanna talk? He asked. I nodded, but I didn't know where to start. So he did. I knew, by the way, he said. I froze. I figured it out, probably 2 months in. One of the guys inside, he had a cousin who worked records. Saw your name on the statement. Told me quietly, no drama. I wasn't even mad, just numb. I opened my mouth, closed it, swallowed hard. Why didn't you say anything? He shrugged. What would I say? I made the call. I brought you in. I was the one who couldn't keep his life straight. You were just trying to get by. That's not true, I said. He looked at me. I kept going. I could have said no. I could have taken the time. Called a lawyer. Waited it out. I didn't. I took the deal and let you rot. I didn't even visit. I didn't even write. That's not on you, that's on me. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he stood up, walked to the fridge, took out a beer, looked at me. You still drink? I shook my head. He grabbed one, sat back down. You think I hated you, he said. I didn't answer. I didn't. I don't. Silence. You know what got me through it? He said. What? That dream I told you about. Bikes and Slurpees. I kept playing that loop in my head. Over and over. It helped. Made things feel smaller. I nodded. My throat was too tight to speak. He sipped his beer. Then he looked at me again. You should have told me. There it was. I nodded again. I know. You should have let me hate you, Jay. At least then it would have been clean. I laughed, but it came out more like a cough. He stood up. I should go. I followed him to the door. He opened it, paused, then turned back. You know I would have taken the fall for you, right? I know. He smiled again. Not kind, not cruel, just knowing. Yeah, he said. That's what makes it hurt. And then he was gone. Just like that.